just start off by telling you a little bit about who I am as a person, where I come from, kind of my history, my background. Then we're going to pause for a short break. I'm going to grill you with a question, a little bit of a pop quiz, and then we'll get into kind of my policy, why I'm running. Does that sound good for tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And I promise not to keep you all night. It call ins at like 8, right?
Uh,
So
yeah, approximately.
okay.
If you get excited and want to run longer, I'll stick with you.
I don't want to do that to anyone. I have a strict 1 hour Zoom call policy in life, and I'll try to leave room for questions at the end. So to start at the beginning, my name's Anna Albi. I was born over in Anderson. So I grew up in Anderson, went to Summit Country Day. I am the daughter of a small business owner who owned his own company here for 41 years. He's also a former police officer from when he lived in Colorado. His name's Frank J. Albi. If you ever drove on 75 past like Hopple Street, kind of towards the Indiana 74, they used a big sign that said BIS or Biz, neon lights. That was our family business for 41 years. So that's our company there. And then my mom is a retired public defender. And a fun little fact about her, so she went to law school. It was like her third or fourth career. She went to law school when she was pregnant with me. She was 40 years old, pregnant with me, with 2 kids already, and went to law school. And she plays tennis, or used to. And one day she was on tennis court with a woman named Ann Flotman, who was like also curious about, oh, you went to law school and you late in life? Maybe I'll go to law school. And sure enough, Ann Flotman went to law school late in life and is now one of our amazing judges here in Hamilton County. So small world in Cincinnati. And my 2 brothers are Marine Corps officers. So we all went to Summit. They went off to the Naval Academy and joined the Marines. My one brother flew helicopters, Huey helicopters, and is now a lawyer for the U.S. Prosecutor's Office in D.C. And my other brother became a supply officer, did 2 tours in Iraq, and he is now still in the reserves, and he's a lawyer for U.S. Customs. So I always joke that I'm the black sheep in the family because I did not go to law school. I'm not a former cop. But, so I lose every argument when the Albi family gets together.
Okay.
So that's a little bit about my family, just to share a couple of stories that I think, let you have an idea of like where I come from. So I mentioned going to school at Summit. Summit's a Catholic school, as many of you, Summit Country Day. And when I was in 7th grade, they took a religion class and for a week replaced it with chastity class. So not sex ed, not abstinence, straight up chastity class. And of that full week, one of the days they dedicated to anti-choice propaganda, all the things that you can imagine. And they finished by handing out these little pins that are like little footprints. I don't know if anyone's ever seen them. They're gold footprints. They're meant to represent like the fetus's footprint at XY, whatever weeks. And they were like, who wants one? And everyone raised their hand except me, who sat there with my arms crossed and scowling. And they still put a pin in front of me. And that just set me off. So I went home that night and I was ranting and raving about what had happened at school to my mom, my one brother. And they both were like, hey, chill out. It's a Catholic school. Like they can do that stuff. Like that's what they do. Unfortunately for my mom, my dad's Italian side of my genetics, my fiery Italian side is stronger than her cool-headedness. And the next day I went into the school library and on a blank sheet of paper, typed up, I am pro-choice, and as big a font as I could fit, printed out and taped it to my chest and went to class for the rest of the day until I was called to the office by the religion teacher and told I was needed to remove the sign because it was not part of the assigned uniform. So that was quite the adventure. And I remember after that happening, kind of being worried if by the time I got home that I was going to be in trouble. So I got called down to the office. I very much did something I shouldn't have been doing. And my mom told me not to do the day before necessarily. And when I got home that night, my mom greeted me in the kitchen and she gave me a big hug. And she told me how proud she was of me, and how good it was of me to stand up and use my voice for something I believed in. And I think that memory has imprinted on me and who I am today. And hopefully hopefully what I give off in the world is that sense of standing up for my beliefs and doing what's right, even when it's maybe a little uncomfortable. And I think, I was talking to someone recently about, they were really grilling me in kind of these deep philosophical questions about why do I care? Or like, why are you so focused on giving back in the world? And I ended up thinking back to that moment, and also an opportunity I had when I was in high school. I had the opportunity to attend a trip down to Guatemala with a local nonprofit called Cooperative for Education. Does anyone here know them? A couple of Xavier grads started it.
Mm-mm.
So it's called Cooperative for Education. They work specifically in Guatemala, and what they do is they do teacher training, reading programs. They help buy textbooks and computer labs for students in Guatemala, because in Guatemala kids don't typically go to school past 5th grade. If you're a teenager, you're usually teaching the little kids how to read. Joe and Jeff Berninger, 2 XU grads, went down there on some trip. Were so inspired by what they saw. They created this organization. So when I was in high school, I got to go down as a representative of Summit Country Day to see the work they were doing. And I was just really touched by what I saw. It was really truly my first time in a country that was lacking so many resources, where you see kids out and they don't have shoes. They're walking along the side of the road next to vehicles. They're not in school all the time. They're doing chores and working. And when I think I was 15 or 16 at the time, and it just really hit me in a way where it was like, okay, we can do something. Everyone, I guess I just really believe in the humanity of all of us, and deserving, kind of a safe world, being able to grow and thrive. So that was also a very impactful time in my life. And I think that plus the family I come from set me on a trajectory where giving back, doing service has always just been a part of who I am. So after I finished high school, I went to school at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. I was a writing major, and so I got my my undergrad in creative and professional writing and my master's degree in professional writing. And then I met my now husband in Pittsburgh, and we spent a little bit of time in Chicago. And when he was finishing up his graduate degree, he was really interested in brand management. And we were kind of at the point where we were, engaged or just married, ready to buy a house and settle down. And I was like, brand management, a place with affordable living. I know a city and I know a company. And sure enough, he now works for Procter & Gamble. And we moved back to Cincinnati here. We live 20 minutes from my parents. And we have been able to build our life here. And this is the city, this is the community. We're in Madisonville. This is the community that we decided to put down roots and build our future, and knock on wood, one day, hopefully raise a family here. And I think that's just a really important thing too, as we think about young people in Ohio coming back to Ohio and Cincinnati specifically, and what we can do here to make this a thriving, awesome city for everyone to want to live in. With that said, our state government sometimes makes things difficult in Ohio, but I think there's a lot. I know, I'm shocking to everyone here. But Cincinnati is doing a lot of amazing things. It's a really cool city, and I'm just so glad to live here, be part of the community, and to be running for city council. So this is the part in our feature presentation where I'm going to take a break. I have a pop quiz for you, but any other questions before I grill you all? It's an easy question, I promise.
I'm ready to be grilled.
I promise it's an easy question. So, but my question for you all, and go ahead and go off mute just to answer, is when you think about a safe community, What does that look like for you? What is community safety to you?
I've got a answer to that.
Yeah, please.
Why not Hamilton County and or the city or both eliminate all weapons? I mean, I'm talking about all the weapons. I don't care if they come from Kentucky or they come from Indiana or they come from Mexico. We got it. In other words, pass a law. No one can own a weapon except, and no assault weapons. Only the people can have a weapon is an officer, a police licensed officer, or a licensed property owner that can protect their property. You know, but we have to get rid of the guns. It's just everything else is secondary or third to me. This is horrible. Cincinnati, I stopped watching the news because every night somebody got shot or killed. So I think that's primary for us to get off our butts and do something about it.
Yep. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Anyone else want to share before I get into what I think of?
Speaking about weapons, I did some research recently, and I did not recall this, but it used to be that counties could form their own laws in Ohio regarding weapons, and that was changed. I believe it was back in 2006, something like that. And of course, we've had a Republican majority almost 30 years in our legislature. The Senate has been that way for 30 years consistently, and just a few years where we've had Democrats in charge. So that's something that's going to be hard to change, I think, but we'll see. We've got some amendments coming along that hopefully are going to help. Sue Ellen.
So when I think about the kind of city that I want to live in, safe to me is derived from a bunch of other things that I feel like the government can help with and support. And, you know, everybody's shaking their head. We all know what that is. If people have enough money to take care of themselves with the current situation, they would feel less need for using guns and participating in criminal activities. So I kind of don't feel like safety of itself is something that can be legislated.
No, I appreciate it. I think you and I are on the same page. I'm going to wait to give my answer, but I'd love to hear from a few more folks. Yeah, Ruth.
Ruth?
Okay, well, I'm definitely agreeing with Sue Ellen. Essential housing, enough funds to have food, enough funds to have education. And I don't know how to fix this piece, but it would be very valuable to have some kind of community piece to it. And then I want to go all the way back though to, we do not have transparency when it comes to donations. That's why I belong to Indivisible, which right now I think is not too active here. But I wonder how, as in the old days when the tobacco companies knew, their researchers knew what was going on, and they lied and they lied and they lied until they couldn't do that anymore. And I just wonder if companies that are, I just don't know which kind of companies that's, what about the gun lobbies? Wonder how, I just don't know. How many campaigns have they sponsored? How many people owe them something? It just worries me that that has happened. And then how can one be safe when corporations and money are running things? So, yeah, just a few questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background here. Can you all hear him? Or
No.
okay, I can. He's loud. No. So, Ruth, I want to tell you a quick story. So, I was the former local group lead for Moms Demand Action here in Cincinnati, and only former because I had to step down because I'm running for city council. Yeah. Okay. So, Moms Demand Action. So we sent a ton of volunteers up to Columbus when they were trying to pass the arming teachers bill, right? So really what happened was this time they had the initial bill had the set as like you needed like 300 something hours of training to be able to be armed in the classroom. And what they did, I think it was 2022, maybe 2021, is they wanted to reduce that down to 24 hours. And what we discovered up there as we were witnessing the proceedings is that one, the lawmaker, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now, who wrote the bill, didn't actually write it. Someone who represented the gun industry wrote it, and it was language pulled from a different state that they just repurposed for Ohio. And two, that sponsoring lawmaker just so happens to own a gun training course that's 24 hours long. So lo and behold, that the lawmaker who was putting forth this legislation to lower the number of hours needed for teachers to, or anyone on school premises to carry a firearm, has a training course that's designed perfectly to fit within this legal, this legal requirement. So, the corruption there, it's not just the donations, right? There's a lot more happening up there with the gerrymandered extremist majority that's in our state house. So, well, I will give anyone else, before I launch into kind of the rest of my spiel, did anyone else want to share what they think of when you hear community safety or what a safe community means to you?
I apologize, but I have to leave.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have an answer for you. I live downtown and I actually feel very safe here, so.
Good. That's good. Don't read the Inquirer article from today. I don't know if you saw that headline. Inquirer published an article today that was like, is downtown Cincinnati really safe?
Yes, it is. So thank you. And good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kurt.
Sorry. So since I was just talking, so I'll launch into my spiel now. I was talking about the state government, and that really is why I am running for Cincinnati City Council, because the extremists at the state house, which we all are familiar with, are making our state less safe. And to give you a specific example, different than the arming teachers, so for years at the state level, there's been a proposed bill proposed by Representative Jessica Miranda that would require secure firearm storage, specifically when kids are around. And despite this being proposed year after year, the extremists in the state house have pushed a gun everywhere agenda, right? They've implemented what we call a shoot first bill. Some people call it stand your ground. We call it shoot first. They've implemented permitless carry, so you don't need a permit anymore. You don't need a background check. You don't need anything to get a gun. It's guns everywhere. And with the secure storage law, the impact is here in my community in Madisonville in October, a 3-year-old was shot and killed when their 6-year-old sibling picked up a loaded gun in the house. And this is a direct line of the corruption at the state house and what it means for us here in our communities. Our community had a tragedy because our lawmakers failed to do the right thing. So when that happened, the next day I called up Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, and over the course of the following week, we distributed 100 gun locks throughout Madisonville into the community, along with information around secure firearm storage. 3 months after that, I had the opportunity to stand with City Council and our mayor, Mayor Aptab, to introduce 2 gun safety ordinances here in Cincinnati. The first one requiring secure firearm storage, and the second one preventing anyone who's convicted of domestic violence from owning or using a firearm. And that is the change, that's the impact we can have here at the local level in the city to make people's lives better, to make people safer. And that's why I'm running for city council. And for me, safety is bigger than just gun violence prevention. Sue Ellen teed it up perfectly. I often talk about gun violence as the final domino to fall, because by the time the gun is in the hand and something tragic has happened, other dominoes have fallen, right? And those are, do folks have a livable wage? Are they able to afford to have a roof over their head? Do they have access to healthcare, fresh food? Fresh food's a big issue in communities. My community is a food desert. Avondale's a food desert. Do our kids, are they going to schools that are well resourced? Are there after school programs that they can partake in? Are folks able to stay in their community and age in place? It's all of those things in our society that makes our community safe. So for me, when we talk about community safety, and we zoom out big picture, how do we make folks safe? We have to be focusing on those things. Pedestrian safety, I forgot to list that one off, right? And so that is really what I want to be focusing on. So someone I was talking to described it as fishing upstream. So those kind of, deep issues that we can tackle, making sure, again, people have a roof over their head. And someone mentioned community programs. I forget who said that one. Maybe it was Ruth. Cincinnati has an amazing fund, two funds actually I'll describe. So the first one is the Boots on the Ground Fund. And that specifically goes toward, there's $10,000 grants specifically for community-based organizations that are doing things like violence interruption, mentoring, working with kids and adults, homelessness in the communities. And that is an amazing opportunity to invest right back into the neighborhood, because that's where we're going to make the change, is at neighborhood level. The other one is called the Safe and Clean Fund. Very similar, but this one's focused specifically on neighborhood being clean and kind of the appearance. And there is a thing, and it's got a very jargony name. So excuse me, it's called Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And it is a data-based approach to crime prevention by altering the literal landscape. So for example, putting in lights into a dark area where maybe things are happening, or even the Cincinnati PD actually has an example from their pivot program where they found that guns were being stored in this kind of abandoned lot where there was overgrown grass. So they started mowing the grass so no one could leave their weapons there and hide them. So it's making actual changes to the environment to make things safer for folks. In other communities, it's cleaning up back alleys or improving the bike trail. So the Safe and Clean, but again, it's community led. So putting dollars into the community. And that's one of the greatest things that City Council does, right? Is make decisions about where we invest our dollars, right? So someone mentioned before, state of Ohio is a tricky state. There's a thing called the preemption law. Actually, Dan, I think you were kind of talking about this. So at the state level, specifically for gun violence and other things, Ohio has a preemption statute that says that anything at the state level preempts the local level. Mm-hmm. Now, good news is in November of last year, a judge out of Columbus ruled that preemption violates city's home rule. Specifically, that was in regards to a case around a gun ordinance that Columbus implemented. And their gun ordinance was, I think, limiting high round magazines. So like 50 has 30 rounds or more, preventing pass-through sales. So like buying a gun for someone else. And there was a third one, but anyway, so this judge has ruled that the preemption law violates our home rule. And that is how Cincinnati was able to pass in February the 2 gun safety ordinances we have currently in effect in Cincinnati that I described. And we have joined the lawsuit with the city of Columbus against the state of Ohio on this preemption thing. So I have high hopes knock on wood, knock on wood, knock on wood. I'm an idealist here, that we will be able to, hopefully win that case. I think, it's a bit of a stretch, but it would be fantastic. And I think as long as that case is going, and Cincinnati has not yet been sued for the 2 ordinances we have in place, to me, those are lives that we're saving. We are saving lives every day that those ordinances are in place. So, I want to continue to push for gun safety ordinances as well. And just to tell you a story of one thing I think would be really helpful. I'm not sure yet how to do it at the city level because of Ohio, but this I think is really vital, is something similar to a red flag law. So a red flag law, it's also called an emergency risk protection order. That is one where if someone is deemed by a court to be a threat to themselves or others and has access to a firearm, there's a legal process to temporarily remove their firearms from the house. So oftentimes used in the case of domestic violence or suicide prevention. And the reason why this one's really personal to me is I recently had a friend call me up and say, hey, I know someone whose adult daughter has been in a mental program, and she recently bought a gun. We know she's suicidal and she just bought a gun, and the parents don't know what to do. And this friend was calling me up as a local lead of Moms Who Made Action, asking me, what can they do? And I remember I said to her, I was like, I don't have a clear answer right now. Give me a few minutes and I'm going to do everything I can to help. And I hung up on her. I called up the sheriff's office. I called up a friend who works in mental health. And then I called up my mother, the former public defender, because she used to work in magistrate court, or I'm saying that word wrong, but the court process that worked with those who were, deemed, mentally unstable and needed help. So, I was able to get back with her and give her information. But again, this is a spot where if we had a state legislature that was truly putting life first, we would have something that we could implement to say, hey, this person is at risk to themselves. We need to get them into safety. We need to prevent them from getting a firearm. So again, I'm not sure quite yet. I need to work with the lawyers at the city, at City Hall to figure out what we could do at the local level. But to me, that is a very big gap of, here today, what can we do? So I have more to say, but I'm going to pause there. Any questions? I don't want anyone falling asleep on me as I ramble on. Been straight after this stuff before.
Yeah. I believe it's House Bill 51. Are you familiar with that? Gene Schmidt's involved.
Yeah. That is the Second Amendment amnesty state, or is that the one?
I believe it's has to do with local law enforcement enforcing. Well, in this case, it was a certain what do they call it? Forgotten the term. Pistol grips or something like that. That's not the term, but and what they're trying to do is separate it out so that local law enforcement can't help the ATF in enforcing certain gun laws that are in place at the federal level.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the like shorthand name for that. I think Second Amendment. I think it's Second Amendment amnesty or say, or they have some
you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically it's saying that if something was passed at the federal level, let's say we reinstate our bipartisan assault weapon ban, like we all want to see, Ohio would just be like, nah, we're not going to follow it, which is clearly unconstitutional. A bill like that was written in Missouri and struck down as unconstitutional in Missouri, which just to say it, and sorry, I can rant about this stuff all day. What's so extra annoying is a bill like that, no one wants it here. None of our citizens ask for it. It's being pushed by the gun industry. And if they pass it, we're obviously going to sue. The ACLU is going to sue, and we're going to win. And yet all of us taxpayers are going to have to pay to go through that process to get something we don't want, we didn't ask for, kicked out of court. It's just, it's my blood pressure is rising right now just talking about it. It's just infuriating. And sadly, because of the gerrymandering, statewide, it's going to be really, really hard without fair maps to get gun safety legislation at the state level that reflects what we want, which again is why city council, Cincinnati City Council, and our local elections here matter so much, because we are filling the gap that the state is leaving. Because the state is passing these dangerous laws, and they're leaving us in the cities to pick up the damage, to pick up the pieces. And so we as a city, need to step up, fill that space, and do what we can to make our, keep people safe. And again, that goes back to, do people have a roof over their head, a livable wage, access to house, food, all of those things, right? It's that full ecosystem to make sure people can truly grow and thrive here in Cincinnati. Yeah, Sienna.
So I don't know if I missed something, but I see your very strong enthusiasm and motivation and interest. But I'm wondering if you have, first of all, did you take that course about running for council that's given here in the city?
So I didn't do, so I haven't done the one that's city council specific. I did Moms Demand Action has a demand a seat program. And I also completed Lead Ohio, which is for kind of across the state for progressives wanting to run for office. I also was part of the 2023 New Leaders Council. I was a New Leaders Council fellow, which is another training organization dedicated to kind of creating connections and community leaders here in Cincinnati. So that one was hyper local to Cincinnati.
Great. And what would you see as, I'm not sure there's a niche or a committee at the council level for your specific interest in gun issues. So where would you see your niche? It seemed to me that the current council members have each taken up a piece of, what they work on together to be invested in that. Where would you see your niche?
Yeah, so there is a public safety committee. I think there's a few more words in the name of that committee, but there is a public safety committee. It's chaired by Scotty Johnson. So I think that is one that's very obvious alignment. I think that Vice Mayor Jan Michelle Kearney also chairs the Healthy Neighborhoods. So when we talk about other things like access to food, I think Healthy Neighborhoods is where that comes in. And then, Mika Owens has actually been doing quite a bit around gun violence prevention through her environmental group, a committee chair there. And I've been really blessed that I've had the opportunity to collaborate with Council Member Owens and Vice Mayor Kearney already through their various committees. So I think being able to work with them, sitting in City Hall with them instead of calling them up separately will be, really helpful. And I think just having that laser focus, we can really move some stuff along. Yeah. All right.
I'm going to ask,
please.
I think you might have answered this already, but I'm going to ask the same question I asked Samantha earlier. What do you think will be the hardest obstacle for you to overcome in implementing what you would like to do?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked her first, because then I had time to think about it. So I think stakeholder engagement is it. And by that, I mean a couple of different things. So one, working with subject matter experts to come up with policy and how best to implement the policy. So, not just talking to the person who's the economic expert on affordable housing, but also working with the city manager's office to figure out if what this person is saying can be applied, implemented, but then also working with those in the community on who work in that space, and then working with community councils to get the word out. To give an example, we recently had the new approach to tax abatements announced, right? So now it's the 3-tier system with kind of the different approach, and we're going to look at it every 3 years. Well, oh man, I hope I don't get in trouble here because we're being recorded. But a key group to have engaged in that conversation were the teachers, were the schools, right? Because changing the tax abatement program applies, directly impacts the school funding. What I'm hearing, I'm going to caveat that for the recording, is that maybe that was a misstep in the process. So, my day job, I do have a day job. I didn't even mention it. So my day job, I am a strategic communication consultant, which is a lot of very long words to say that I help companies write communications to their employees when there's something complicated to tell them. So whether or not a company is going through a merger and acquisition or making a major change to how they pay people or people's benefits, they will hire my broader company to make the changes, and they will hire me and my teammates to communicate those changes. And a key part of my everyday job is stakeholder engagement. And who do you talk to when, and how do you get them on board? So then when you go out to every single person in Cincinnati with a new program, you've got the buy-in from those influencers to make sure that you can communicate it effectively and, as much as possible, reduce pushback from the groups that you really need to be on board. So I think the hardest thing is probably going to be that stakeholder engagement piece, both kind of the initial planning phase, and then how do we communicate it out effectively. That was a longer answer than I think anyone bargained for. I apologize.
Okay. You're muted, Swellen.
I got the thumbs up from her. I got it.
Okay. All right.
So I know we're at 7:59, so I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. So you're welcome to email me. I'll put my email in the chat. But before I go, I do have an ask, a humble ask. So I am an endorsed Democrat. I'm the 9th endorsed Democrat, but I'm the only non-incumbent running. So I need help spreading the word about my campaign, knocking doors, calling friends. If you're able to help with that, if you're able to give, that's really helpful. We're about to buy yard signs and our new round of literature. And let me tell you, I always was like a big person for campaign finance. I never knew why people needed money. And then I started getting the bills back for buying campaign literature. So if you're able to give and support, that would mean so much to me. I'm going to drop my website here in the chat. And there's a link there to volunteer, to give, and then you can absolutely follow me on social media. It's Anna Albi on Facebook and Twitter, and Cincy Albi on Instagram. And I'm going to put my email here too, and you're welcome to reach out to me. So
Great.
thank you so much for having me tonight. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anna. And we wish you best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Keep wearing those signs on your chest, okay?
I know. I knew you weren't going to be able to see it, but I was like, I'm putting it on anyway.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Hope you have a good one. Hope to see you around. Take care.
All righty. Good night. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording here.